what we're going to do here is look at an existing shape that we've got and actually think about it. I'll just change the color of it so it's a bit more obvious. There we go. Which is this sort of this wine glass type shape that we've created in 2D. And if I look at that in my front view, you can see here, very, very simple, very, very easy shape. And we're going to take that and we're going to make, first of all, this wine glass with it. And then we're going to sort of make a couple of variations. So we've got a bit of a set going on here. I especially like the flute glass there, actually. I quite like that one a lot. So I very, very quickly made this shape. And I did that by taking a linear spline. And as I said, in my front viewport, I just sort of clicked a few times, made the basic shape. And then I went in and I put a fillet on some of the corners, you can see here. And then I went through and I did the next step, and that's the bit that we're going to talk about, which is applying a lathe modifier. So what I'll do is I'll select the object, go to my Modify tab, go to my drop down, and I'll find lathe in there. There we go. And boom, there we have it, lathe. Now, you may need to make sure that you have weld core clicked, because in some instances you'll get this sort of effect happening, which isn't very good. You might find that you need to do something called flip the normals, which is in effect turn it inside out, depending on how you've created it. We have this thing about cap start and cap end. Well, because we've done this over 360 degrees, that won't make so much of a difference. But you can see here that what I've got is, in fact, the start is at the bottom here and the end is down there. So it's not showing up so much. But what you've got here is this thing where I can just sort of carve all the way through and just sort of show various bits of it or not various bits of it. I've also got 8 segments, so if I turn that down to 8, press F4 here, you can see this becomes a little bit more obvious when we say, well, we could just have a triangular shape that could be a bit odd. I could have a very, very square goblet, or as I start to sort of increase the number of sides, it starts to become smoother and smoother, so you can really go for sort of whatever you're looking for here. So whether you want something that's sort of slightly more rectangular, something that's smoother, you've really got a good idea of what you want to do. And it's very, very interactive as well. Now, one thing I would be careful of is the direction that you put your lathe in. Having it at X or Y, or sorry, Z, will give me a very, very strange shape. It's only really one that I'm interested in. If I wanted to as well, I could align the center here, and that's giving me some very strange results. And what that's doing is, if I open up this axis and I start to move it around, you can see what I'm doing is I'm changing the position at the axis of what the shape is lathing around. The shape is no longer lathing around itself, which is what it should be doing here. It's exactly how it should be. It's actually sort of rotating around an offset point. And it's that offset point that's sort of really giving us this hole in the bottom and the hole in the top there. So it's not necessarily what I want. There we go. I can choose my output as either being patches or being NURBS. NURBS aren't something that we particularly cover in this course because they don't really work very well in 3D Studio Max. And I've also got the option to generate mapping coordinates for my object. And again, mapping coordinates is something we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But once I've created my basic shape, I can then come along and I can start creating sort of all these other different shapes that I've got. Simply by, I need to make sure I'm in the lathe option there. Simply by left clicking and dragging and making a copy, I can go to my scale tool and I can scale the whole lot up. And you can see there now what we've got is in actual fact more of a white wine glass. If I make another copy of that, in actual fact, let's make a copy of that there. I click OK, and if I go back to my scale, what we can do here is we can make more of a champagne flute. There we go. So I'm obviously doing these at a different scale to the ones that we had there, but nonetheless, sort of the feeling's still the same. And I could make another change as well just by shift clicking and making a copy there. Going back to my scale and just sort of opening that up a lot more. There we go, we've got a little bit of a goblet going on there. If I make another change, or rather more of a red wine glass, in fact if I make another change and click OK and come down to my lathe and click on vertices, you'll see I see my outline now. If I click on my show hide end result, I can actually interactively change this by reducing the size of the stem down. And indeed now I am making more of a goblet. Whoop. Might have to deal with this. There we go. Just move that down. And we've got more of a goblet going on. I'll take the base as well and I'll reduce that in. So there we have more of a sort of a brandy glass type effect. So very, very quickly and very, very easily from just that one shape, from using your lathe modifier and by shifting and dragging out copies and using the scale tool, I can really, really quickly make a complete collection here ranging from, I don't know, it might be a liqueur glass here, to a white wine glass, to a flute, to a red wine glass, and to more of a sort of a brandy style glass. So it's very, very easy to use, and it's very, very quick to use, and it's very, very easy as well to make copies and to make variations of what you originally created using the lathe modifier.